Okay, today we are going to learn how to loom knit this cabled headband, the X's and O's headband. It has offsetting cables and is run through with elastic. Decorative elastic. Of course, it is wide enough for an ear warmer, or it can just be worn as a headband. This video tutorial is to demonstrate how to work the pattern in the classic way of doing cables with 1 stitch per peg. So let's get started. First, we will need our 32 peg small loom authentic knitting board. We'll need our yarn. The pattern calls for Line Brand Yarns Woolies. We are using the color Blush Heather. It is a 4-weight yarn that is 80% acrylic and 20% wool. Also be needing what is called decorative fold-over elastic. Now, different brands make different. Some come on spools, some are on cards that are wrapped around the card. But the reason they call it fold-over, they will all have that, looks like a little indentation right there, so it could be folded over, but we're not going to. You can get them in solid colors or other types of decorative designs. You will need 1.5 yards of this to make one headband. Also need your loom pick, a tapestry needle to weave in your ends, and also what is called a cable needle. Now, if you don't have a cable needle, fear not. You can use something like an open safety pin. But if you're afraid you're going to stick yourself with that, I like to use, in a pinch, an opened up paper clip. You will also need some sewing thread. This will be for sewing your elastic. So some sewing thread, it can be little spools or whatever, even from like a mending kit. And also a sewing needle. Now let's get started. Now that we are ready to cast on, we are going to be casting on 19 stitches. This one, for some reason, I like this one, working flat panel. This is going to be my peg 1. So, I didn't mention this. You don't have to do this. You don't have to have stitch markers for this. But, just so that I can keep up with my counting, I always put 1 on there. So I'll need 19 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So that's my end one. I am just putting these on here just so that whenever I get ready to cast on, I don't have to keep counting over and over, because believe me, I will. Now, to cast on, I'm going to turn my little loom around, since this one's going to be our last. This will be peg 1, this will be peg 19, stitch 19. I will start casting on from this way and go around. So we take our yarn end, have enough of a tail to weave in. We are going to make our slip knot. I do not like knots in my work. You can put your slip knot on that peg. I don't like doing that, so I'm going to use this peg over here as my anchor. But do it however you like. And then I am simply going to E-wrap, cast on all the way around, because we are going to be seaming our cast on edge to our bind off edge anyway, since we are using elastic in our headbands. And this is just nice and simple, and it doesn't really matter on how the edge of it looks, because like I said, we will be seaming. So now that I am back around to my first peg, Then I am ready to work my first row. Now that we are ready for row 1 is purl 1, knit 8, repeat from the asterisk, which means we will purl another 1, knit 8, just one more time, and then purl 1. So we will purl 1, and then we will knit our 8, and then purl 1 and knit our 8 till we get over to the other side. Now that we have gotten over here to the end of row 1, we're going to purl that last stitch. And if you were working your anchor with your anchor peg like I did, then you can just simply take that off at that point and just ignore it. Now then row 2 is exactly the same as row 1. Just purl that first stitch and head back in the other direction. Now that I have finished my second row, we're back at peg 1. Now this will be one of our cable rows. Now I would like to remind y'all to keep your stitches loose. You can work it in E-wrap. I would not recommend it. Cables don't look as neat and tidy with E-wrap stitches, but that is your preference. And also you can use U-wrap. Just make sure you keep your stitches loose. True knit, in my opinion, is your easiest way to control your tension and without snugging that up, because you don't want your stitches to be tight on those pegs at all. And this is another reason that using wool or wool blends with cables is better. It will give you stretch and body to your work, and it just makes it easier. If you do have problems with your tension and find it, maybe you need to be working your cables using the peg sharing system or peg doubling. We will get started on row 3. We will purl that first stitch, and yes, those edges will kind of curl. They'll kind of curl in on just that one stitch on the side. I just like the way that that edge looks. Now then, we are ready for, we have purl 1 on row 3 and then a cable 4 back. Now then, the cable 4 back is worked over the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you are working this, you can mark them off with stitch markers if you like. First, you will place the stitch from peg 1 and peg 2 on your cable needle, or as I am using, a paper clip. 1 and 2. And you will hold those to the back. Now then, we will take our working yarn in front of here. We will now knit pegs 3 and 4 and move those stitches. And you can move them as you work them. So if we're using a true knit stitch, we're going to bring that loop and we're just going to go ahead and move it over to peg 1. Kind of tighten it up. This is where you can use you can tighten them on here, because it will actually make your stitches look tidier. But only when you're actually working. Now we are going to take these 2 stitches that's on our cable needle, and we're going to be placing them on pegs 3 and 4. Since this was the stitch here, this last one that we put on was from peg 2, we are going to place it, take it off. You can use your pick if you like. Sometimes that will make it easier. Bring it over and put it on peg 4, and then the first one that was placed on there, here we go. Put it on your pick, take your cable needle off, and then put it on peg 3. Now then, we will knit pegs 3 and 4. Now that is your cable 4 back, and that is all there is to that one. Now then, our next stitch is also a cable stitch, but it is the cable 4 front. It is also worked over 4 stitches, but they are worked in a different order. So on this one, we will not be putting our stitches on the cable needle yet. We will just take our working yarn behind pegs 1 and pegs 2. We are going to knit 3 and 4. Then we're going to place the stitches from 3 and 4 onto our cable needle. You can do that while right after you knit it. Like you take it off, you just slide that on there and it'd be fine. And then 4. Now then we're going to hold that to the back. We're going to come back behind the pegs. Go ahead and pull on that. We're going to knit peg 1 and then peg 2, and then we are going to move them. Now this is the way I like to do it. You can do it one at a time, but I like to go ahead and take them both off. Move that working yarn out of the way and go ahead and pull them. Place the loop from peg 1 onto peg 3, the loop from peg 2 onto peg 4. Then you're going to take your loop that was on peg 4 that is on your cable needle. You're going to take that one off, and you are going to put it on peg 2. So then the one on peg 4 goes to peg 2. And the one that was on peg 3. Now then we will tighten those up. And in order to do that, this was the first one knit. Go ahead and snug that one up first. Then snug the second one that was knit up next. Then the third one that was knit. And then that fourth one that was knit. There. And that's all there is to working that cable 4 front. But we're still got a few ways to go. So we've got to repeat that cable because we've got 2 sets of cables running side by side. And they're going to be offset from each other. So in order to do that, then we will purl one in between those. And then we will have our next 4. And so our first one is cable 4 front again. Cable 4 front, so we go behind and we knit this one. And like I said, you can go ahead and just whenever you pull that off of there, you can place it on the cable needle. And then knit the next one on peg 4. Place it on the cable needle. Lay it to the back. Bring that working yarn in front. Knit the first stitch. And the second. You can just hold that one, take that first one, hang on to your pick, pull that one from 2 over to 4, the stitch from 1 onto 3. Take the stitches that is on your cable needle. Take that first one off. This was the one from peg 4. We're going to place it on peg 2. And then the stitch from peg 3, which was already knit, onto peg 1. Then we're going to tighten those up, so just gently pull that so that will tighten that between there. And then this second one that was knit, and then the third one that was knit, and then the fourth one that was knit. Pull it on up. Now then, we've got our next 4 stitches are going to be the cable 4 back again. So we will take our cable needle, put that first stitch onto our needle, and then our second peg is now empty as well. Hold that to the back. Now then, we are going to go ahead and knit the third one. We'll go ahead and move it from 3 to 1. Tighten that one up. Then back over. Knit the fourth one and move it over here. See, because these you tighten up as you go. Then we take that stitch from peg 2 that is on our needle, place it on peg 4, and the stitch from peg 1 that is trying to slip back through, get it onto our loom pick. Put our cable needle down, put it on peg 3. So that was on peg 1. It is now on peg 3. Now then we can knit pegs 3 and peg 4. And then our last stitch, of course, is the purl. And that is row 3. Then row 4, of course, through 6 are all the next of the 3 rows. 4, 5, and 6 are all a repeat of row 1. So it's just that same purl 1, knit 8, purl 1, knit 8, purl 1. So let's go ahead and knit 3 rows for 4, 5, and 6. Back and back and back, and then we will meet back up for row 7. Now that we have worked the first 6 rows, we're ready for row 7. Row 7 is a repeat of row number 3. So instead of doing it all again, you will just need to back up until you get to row 3, and then you will work row 7 the exact same way. And then 8, 9, and 10 are all repeats of row 1 again. Therefore, you will need to repeat rows 3 through 6 again, or row 3 and then repeat row 1 3 times to get to row 10. And we will end up back here again and ready for row 11, which is different. Now then, for row 11, we do, after our first purl, we will do the front, the cable 4 front over the next 4 pegs. So we will skip those and then we will knit peg 3, and then we will knit peg 4. And placing those stitches on our cable needle, and then we will come back and we will knit peg 1, we will knit peg 2, and then holding peg 2 and peg 1, we will bring them over so that 1 will go on 3, 2 will go on 4, and then we will come back, and the stitches that are on our cable needle, you will put that last one that was put on there was from peg 4 onto peg 2 and peg 3, the first one that was on peg 3 onto peg 1. And then we will tighten those first ones, knit first, then the third and the fourth. So when you work the front, the 4 cable front, you will always tighten them after, but then when you work the back like we are about to do, you will tighten them up as you go. So on the next 4 stitches is a cable 4 back. The first 2 go onto the cable needle. Bring your working yarn behind the pegs, but in front of those stitches. Knit the third one, placing it on peg 1, and then the fourth one, placing it on peg 2. So cinch those up as you go. You can still cinch them up at the end, but you've got to work it in a different order. Now then, we're going to take that one that was on peg 2. We're going to take it off of our cable needle, making sure our working yarn is between those. Well, see, it's a bit tight. So I'll teach you a little bitty trick here. Place that one back on peg 2. Place that one back on peg 1. Now then, now our working yarn is here and it's coming from here. So to get it out of the way of this, what will be the stitch that will go onto the 4th peg, just go ahead, lift it back off, and you could do this before you're putting them on, and then put that back on. Now then, we're going to bring that behind. We're going to knit. We're going to act like those bottom ones aren't on there. And this is one reason that using the peg shearing technique will be easier on your tension. And then you take them off, bring that one over here, place it on the 3rd peg, and then this one onto the 4th peg. Because since you have the stitches being shared already, so on the peg sharing technique, be sure and check out that video because it definitely makes this a whole lot easier. And then our next one will be our purl. Because we have a purl between each set of cables. Purl. And then the next 4, 2, 3, 4 will be another back. So cable 4 back, which means we will need to put our stitch 1 and stitch 2. Take that one off and put it on the cable needle. Take that second one off, put it on the cable needle, hold it to the back, bring your working yarn between the pegs and the stitches on the cable needle. We are going to knit peg 3, and place it on peg 1. Tighten that up. And then peg 4, knit it, put it on peg 2. Place that there. Now then, this will probably still be too tight, so what we're going to do is we're going to do like we did that last time. And instead of trying to stretch it all the way back over to peg 4 until we get them knit, we will put them on pegs 1 and 2 again. Again, lift that second one up, move your working yarn behind the peg in front of that stitch, and then wrap it around from the back. Knit just that top one, ignoring that bottom one. Keep that a little bit loose because you are going to need to move it. And then knit that one, hold it, hold that one with your pick, and bring it all the way over to pegs 3 and peg 4. Now then, these are the front ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We are going to skip pegs 1 and 2 to do the 4 cable front for the second time on this row. We're going to knit that one, place it on the cable needle. They always tend to want to run off, so you've got to find it. I never put my down in the same spot. Knit peg 2, knit peg 4, place it on that runaway cable needle, and making sure that it doesn't snag on any other stitches like that's trying to right there. Bring that there. Now you're going to bring that working yarn back around, so in front of those, back to peg 1. We're going to knit that one, and then knit the second one, and then hold that one. Take that one, and put the first one on peg 3, the second one on peg 4. You're going to put the one that was on peg 4 onto peg 2. It didn't want to go, did it? And put that one there, and then the one that was on 3 on to 1. Go ahead and tighten these up again. The fronts you tighten last, the backs you tighten as you go. And then purl that last. And then the next 3 rows will be a repeat of row 1. Then you will repeat row 15 as a repeat of row 11 that we just worked. And then row 16 is a repeat of row 1 again. And then those 16 rows make up your pattern. Then you will follow the number of times to make it for the length that is in the pattern, and then we will meet back up for the assembly. Now we are ready to bind off. You can tell my stitches are really tight still here. I have finished my last row, which was row 16 of the 8th repeat. So now we're just going to do a basic bind off. Nothing too fancy or whatever. I just go ahead and use the U-wrap on the basic bind off, and all you do, and just make sure you don't get it too tight. What I like about the basic bind off is you are in complete control over your tension. So keep that stitch just a little bit loose. And so you bring that one over, put that one on the first one, so you make sure both of them are knit. So again, I'm just breezing in here like I assume you know what. You've got that one knit. You knit the next one. Bring the second to the first. And then knit over on it. And then place that one back over on the next peg. And just continue that on to the end. Now then, this is our final stitch. You will knit it, bring it over, knit over, and then, well, first you will need to cut it. Leave yourself about, enough to seam. Cut that. And then you will just simply draw that working tail, or the working yarn, now it's a tail, back through by just lifting that over, and then completely, let me just move the loom, and then completely drawing that last loop all the way through. And there you have got yourself a nice, tidy bind off. Now we have our cast on edge. We have our bind off edge. We're going to lay it flat with the wrong side up. Bring those wrong sides together. And then turn it where we can see it like this. The top and the bottom, so to speak. Now then, we're going to take our long tail that we saved from our bind off. We're going to thread our needle. Now, while you can use any type of tapestry needle, this one is a plastic, it's a larger, but this one is a blunt metal tapestry needle. So now we have our bind off. We will not be using those stitches there. We will be using the stitches above it. This is where we pulled that last stitch through. And then we were going to join it over here. So just go ahead and run that needle through that stitch right there. Now then, get your other towel out of the way. It would be okay to go ahead and weave that one in already. So now what we're going to do is we are going to seam the two together and make it look seamless, where there is no join. So what we do is we've got that run through there. We go back to the top, not there, but you see where that knit V is right here? We're going to bring our needle in under that V. Don't pull it too tight. And then we're going to come back down to here. And then we are going to find that first it's going to be upside down. Our V's up here are going to be at the bottom. Our V's down here are upside down. Now then, see, this one is our purl row here. And that was where we joined. So we're going to find that first knit like we did that other one. We're going to go through in under both of those. And then back to the top. We're going to find that next one. It will be this one right here. You can always find, I'm going to hold my thumb right there, you can find where your went through on that last one. It's right there. You go to the next one over. And then you come back to the bottom, V, upside down V, and then go through, and then back to the top. And you will continue doing that. You can go ahead and just snug it up just a little bit, but not completely, because what we're doing is we're working these to where it looks like there's knit stitches joining them together. Kind of like a Kitchener, except you have your bind off edge and your cast on edge is going to be underneath. It will make a, it's not really a good one to use for seaming toes because of socks, because then it will create a larger ridge under there. So let's go back down to the bottom one, and we are going to find that next one, which is here, because these are going to be pulled slightly because of the cables. Just try to match it up stitch by stitch. If you need to, you can join multiple stitches, but see, the cast on is a little bit back up here, is a little bit snugger than my bind off because I snugged it up. Maybe I shouldn't have. And then back to the bottom. Since that's pulled out, see, you can see, there it is right there. See, not there, but right here. And I just pulled my tail out. We will do that again. Press it down and pull it through. And then back to the top. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because this will be the back side of the there. So just continue on over until you get to the other side. Now we're almost to the other side. You will just keep doing those V's. And see, this is loose because of how the cables were finished at the end. And it has kind of a hole right here. So in order to draw that up, we will just bring that through there and then back down into there. Then you can just weave in your ends. Now we have it seamed. It isn't the prettiest of seams, but like I said, it also doesn't quite match up because of the number of repeats that was done. You would have had to have done a half of a repeat in order for the cables here to completely match up. And then you will see the other side where there is a larger ridge. So weave in those ends, and then we will be to finishing with the elastic. Now you can see this headband will fit perfectly fine on any adult size head with just as it is. So if you don't want to use the elastic, then that is fine. You don't have to, because it will fit just as it is. So let's measure. We have got twice the length of this. So I have got about 10.5 inches, which of course is 21 inches. So what we will need to do is we will need to cut 2 lengths of yarn that is 20 inches long. And you're going, wait a minute, why will it not be 21 inches? Because that is, we're going to cut our length an inch shorter than what this is, because it will stretch. And since this will not have much of a chance of unraveling, we will not be sewing it, you know, having a large seam allowance on it. So let's go ahead and measure. So I've got it here at 0. And I have my thing upside down. So let's turn it. And when it is at approximately 20 inches, which is right here, I'm going to hold that. I am going to just cut. Now then, instead of having to measure again with my tape, all I'm going to do is I am going to line up my ends, and I am going to cut the second the same as the first without stretching. And there. Now we are going to thread it through here. Now we are going to take one of them. We're going to find our seam. We're going to go in here. Go in on the wrong side. We're going to bring it through there and then back through there. So basically, our elastic will go through the ends in the middle of the O's and behind the X's. So then you will skip that X, look for that next, bring it through, and then back to the back. And just keep threading that around until you get, without completely pulling it through. So there. And there. Cinch it up some. And it might not hurt just to make it look a little bit gathered for a while. That way you're not pulling it all the way through on the other end. So you bring that and then through there. So keep going all the way around until this first one is completely threaded through all of your circles. Now we are back at this last one. We will go through it. And then back down right at the seam. Now, go ahead and just let that bunch up for now, because we're going to need those ends. See? But we do want it to lay flat. See? So make sure that when you sew, you've got it overlapping and it is flat. It's not twisted. And then make sure that all of that is through there as well, is not twisted in any way. Now, let's go ahead and run the second one through before we sew. Now, since if you need to as well, you can go ahead, you can take a safety pin just to make sure that they will not come undone. Just lay it like that, like you're going to sew it. Run that safety pin through there, just to hold it to keep them from going through while you do this other one. So we're back at our seam. Now this side is the X's. So the X's side will be a little bit longer on the bottom side. But we will get our second piece of elastic. Same thing, find that first of our O's and then bring it on through. Pull it on up. Skip our X, go to our next O, bring it through, and continue all the way around. Okay, now I've gone through that last C, and then there's no more until that first one. Now, you don't have to go to great expense to buy sewing thread. I bought this little pack of different colors at the Dollar General. It was like $2 or $3. I don't remember. So, if you're not a seamstress, you can buy a pack like this, or you can buy one of those just little mending kits that's got the little cute little spools, and it also comes with a little needle threader and needles in it and what have you. Now, you do not necessarily have to match your thread in particular, because it's going to be hidden underneath the headband. But if you're like me, you might want that to match. Go ahead and thread your needle, not your end. You are going to just overlap this about 1/4 of an inch. Do it the same on both sides. And we're just going to do a simple sewing it together. So we're just going to go in the front, through the back, and we're going to go across. See, it's just, if you've never sewn anything, it's not that hard. Just take your stitches back and forth from the front through the back. Since that is overlapped, we did that because instead of putting them together in a different way to keep it flat. I'm sorry, I keep trying to get it out of the frame. And just go across. Keep your stitches small, and whenever you get over to the other side, just tug on it a little. See how tight you've got your stitches. If you want to, you can whip stitch around the edge. So bring it so that it will wrap around the edge. And then that will help keep that tighter, and then start going back in the other direction. So technically, you will have two seams. You'll go one way, and then you'll come back the other. And to make it stronger, because with elastic, you will want it to be as strong as possible on your seam, your stitches. So just once you get back to the other side, then just knot it off and trim your thread, and then do the other side. And then that's all there is to sewing your elastic. Now that I have both of these done, I will just go ahead and turn it wrong side out, and I will just pull it like that until it is gently pulled like it needs to. And there you go. You have got a nice headband that could be used as an ear warmer with elastic and cables and hugs and kisses.